Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Mike Triplett is with us from neworleans.football. Follow him on Twitter at Mike Triplett. Mike, let me look. Hat tip, obviously, you had an exclusive, a one-on-one with Jameis, which got a ton of attention last week. So if I could just ask, how did that all come about?
Well, yeah, I just approached him in the locker room and asked him if he was willing to talk, and I think he was in the mood to talk. I mean, I had approached him a few times in the past. We talked briefly after some games in the locker room a couple other days. He said, I'll get you guys next week or something. So just got him on the right day. But, I mean, I'm not going to put words into his mouth why he wanted to talk, but one thing that really stood out to me, I mean, it was a great conversation. And I know some people plucked out some things that seemed controversial where maybe him and the team are at odds. And yeah, a little bit. I think he's disappointed with how things have played out, but it was not a controversial interview, but it was a really honest and candid one. And the one thing he said many times was how much he regrets pushing to play and playing against Tampa Bay in week 2 and hurting himself worse because he wanted to play that game so bad and he wanted to be this team's quarterback so bad. He wanted to fight through it. And he's acutely aware that going out there and playing against Tampa Bay and playing poorly and throwing what he said were the worst deep balls of his life, he said, if you go out on the field, you're 100%. And he said, I put bad tape out there, and I'm going to be judged by what I put out there. And he's well aware how many chances he has left to be a starter in the NFL. I thought that was really interesting. So I think he knows that it's important for everyone to know everything he was dealing with, that he was not 100%, why he was so passionate about playing when he was not 100%, and where he stands now. Because, whether he likes it or not, he knows that he's going to be judged on this season, and time's running short on this season.
How healthy is Jameis right now?
That is such a strange question because I think they all talked about that this week, internally and with Jameis Winston, and the conclusion that was reached was not healthy enough to start and give them a better chance to win or to not risk further injury behind this porous offensive line or whatever it was. I definitely think his health played a role in the decision. Now, he has been healthy enough for 4 weeks now that he is not on the injury report anymore because he's practicing fully, and he's been active 3 games in a row now as the number 2 backup. And if Andy Dalton got hurt on the first play, then Jameis would play the rest of the game. So healthy, but, he said definitely not 100%. Not only did he have the fractures in his back in week 1, but he also tore a tendon in his foot in week 2. And that one is probably the one that has affected his mobility the most and is going to take the most time to recover. So he probably won't be 100% healthy all season. He'll probably be better a month from now than he is now. But healthy enough to be back playing for this team on the active roster, but not healthy enough that it's a clear decision for this team to say he would go out there and look like himself and be able to protect himself. So somewhere in between.
Mike, this might be a question where I'm just asking your opinion, or maybe you know.
Yeah.
Is Dennis Allen falling on the sword for Jameis, or is he being truthfully misleading? I don't want to say lying. Is he being truthfully, or is he being intentionally misleading about Jameis's health?
No, now this is me piecing together a lot of clues and not knowing everything. But I think this is one of the things that is not as controversial as it was made out to be last week. Dennis Allen said when he sort of officially named Andy Dalton his starter indefinitely, Dennis Allen said, Jameis Winston, somebody said, is this just until Jameis Winston is back healthy? And he said, Jameis Winston is back healthy now. But we like the direction of our offense, and we're going to stick with Andy Dalton as long as our offense continues to play well. So that was true in the sense that Jameis Winston was back. The same way Actually, we're seeing the exact same thing in Washington right now. I just noticed Carson Wentz has returned to practice, but Ron Rivera said they're going to stick with Taylor Heineke. Like, if this was a Drew Brees situation where doctors have now cleared him to, return to the field, Drew Brees would have been back in there right away, even if he was only 70% healthy. So Dennis Allen didn't necessarily claim Jameis Winston is 100% healthy, but he did come out and sort of declare Jameis Winston is healthy enough to play again, but I am choosing to go with Andy Dalton over him. And in some ways, that was stupid of Dennis Allen to have to make such a declarative statement because it alienates Jameis Winston a little bit. It marries Dennis Allen to Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton hasn't played well. So now that was Allen's choice. But in some ways, you sort of, in the media, we respect that Dennis Allen said it. He was not starting Andy Dalton just because Jameis was unavailable. He was choosing to start Andy Dalton. So I think we kind of understand all of that. But there was no point where Dennis Allen claimed Jameis Winston was 100% healthy. I always interpreted it as healthy enough to play, and we're choosing not to put him back in there yet. I do think if he was 100% healthy, he'd be back there by now, though.
Well, that's interesting. Mike, do you believe Jameis Winston has a future with the New Orleans Saints? And again, just your opinion.
It seems highly unlikely because it feels like this thing could be headed toward mutual divorce. Obviously, Dennis Allen doesn't seem to have a lot of faith in Jameis Winston. They tried to move on to Deshaun Watson. He quickly moved on to Andy Dalton when Andy Dalton strung a couple good games together. So it doesn't seem to be a lot of faith in Winston on that end. It certainly doesn't seem like Winston can probably have a lot of belief that his coach believes in him here. But the great wild card in all this is, are we going to see 4 or 5 games of Jameis Winston at the end of this season? And that could change where everybody stands. I mean, if they don't let him play again this year, it's hard to imagine they bring him back next year. But I would predict that we are still going to see a small sample size of Winston at some point before the season is over.
I agree. And after the bye would make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And then you'd have
If not sooner, yeah.
You'd have, 3 months of Jameis getting healthier for the opportunity to play at peak
And he's under contract for next year. I mean, it's going to cost him a lot of money to cut him early. So, I mean, they would love for him. They would love for that confidence to be renewed on both sides. They'd love to see him play great in December and bring him back as the starter next year. That's the most ideal scenario. It just feels like a long shot one right now.
He's on Twitter at Mike Triplett, neworleans.football. Our conversations with Mike here every Thursday brought to you by Benny's Car Wash, where you can get unlimited washes for as low as $14.99 a month. Unlimited washes for $15 a month. It's crazy. We appreciate our friends over at Benny's for bringing us our convo with Mike. Mike, let's turn the page to this weekend against the Rams, who have their own issues. I mean, a couple of 3-win football teams right now. Do you like the matchup for New Orleans?
No. not the current state of New Orleans. Look, the story I wrote last week, a week ago, I can't remember, I might have published it right before I went on the air with you or right after, was just what a shame the injury report was. Like, we thought we were going to see the second half of this season where the Saints finally had some semblance of health, and then maybe we'd figure out if there was an actual team here to get excited about. And then they had this stretch of games, winnable games, especially last week at Pittsburgh, a reeling team they should have been able to beat up on, and now a reeling Rams team that's injured too. But then all these new injuries come up. They're missing 3 offensive linemen, and we saw that they couldn't gain a first down to save their lives. They couldn't get a 3rd and 5 or shorter to save their lives against Pittsburgh, and now they're going against Aaron Donald with 2 healthy offensive linemen. I just don't know. I think Aaron Donald's going to wreak havoc on this team. So the other side of the ball, yeah, obviously Matthew Stafford is just coming back from missing a week with the concussion. It looks like he's going to play, but he's not going to have Cooper Kupp. The Rams have not been able to run the ball all year long. But, there's still no Marshawn Lattimore. We might not see Cam Jordan or Marcus Davenport in this game. Still no Pete Werner. I mean, what are we even talking about matchups for? The Saints can barely field a functional team right now.
Which continues to point, and it's odd, Mike. I mean, I'd love to sit here and break down the Saints-Rams with you, but it's 2-3 win football teams, and it's kind of inconsequential. And I asked you last week, if the Saints are playing for the future, what does that look like? And we had that sort of conversation, but is that where we are right now, where we're really just evaluating for their final 7 games? Is Dennis Allen going to be the coach next year? And what's the?
Yeah.
But Mike, what would be the evidence to suggest that he would be the guy you'd want to proceed with moving forward?
Well, I think Dennis Allen is sort of married to a overall plan, which is bring back this culture and bring back a large portion of this roster and try to do it again when healthy. That was obviously the plan that they had this year. That's why they hired Dennis Allen and why they kept pretty much the entire coaching staff and roster intact, because they love their culture and they had 5 straight winning seasons before this. So that's what's at stake. Is if I think Dennis Allen, the only way Dennis Allen I think is a one and done coach is if the Saints just decide, let's take a whole new approach. Let's go back to 2006 and let's have 20 plus new players next year, a wholly new coaching staff next year, and let's kind of reset this thing a little bit. I think that's all at stake. Now, the other thing that could cost Dennis Allen his job is if the team totally quits on him, and if they're going up to the front office and saying they don't feel like they don't like the way he treats them, or we haven't seen signs of that yet, but it's also reaching rock bottom right now, and that's the kind of thing that could happen. Up until 2 weeks ago, they were 1 game out of first place, and this division felt winnable. Now they're going to go through 8 weeks without a lot of hope, and that's when the cracks turn into something bigger if it's going to happen. So all that is really at stake, as depressing as that sounds.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, it is worth noting, obviously, though, even winning a division as bad as this doesn't mean you're close to a championship.
No.
But yes. I know we're short on time here, and there is a really good piece up at neworleans.football right now that Nick did, looking at the salary cap, and is it rebuild or try to win now? That's up there right now at neworleans.football. You also post a video of Trevor Penig at practice. Are we going to see him this week or soon?
This week would surprise me, although it's not completely out of the question. Maybe he starts to make a cameo as the 6th offensive lineman or something, because we did see him actually practicing this week. But, I mean, they opened his 3-week window last week. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a belief that he's getting close. Yeah. Okay. I did think when he came back it would be as the 6th offensive lineman, but that was before James Hurst got the concussion. They might be on the same timetable. So we'll see, but that would be something to look forward to, is to watch his development over the last few weeks. I mean, the young guys have been the most the most positive part of this season.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh, obviously, for Hurst having a concussion. It's just the unintentional comedy of the whole thing of what the season has become. All right, exactly. Mike Triplett, neworleans.football. Of course, our conversations with Mike here every Thursday are brought to you by Benny's Car Wash, bennyscarwash.com, bennyscarwash.com. You can join the Benny's Car Wash membership. Unlimited washes for as low as $14.99 per month. Learn more at bennyscarwash.com or get to the Benny's Car Wash near you. Mike Triplett at neworleans.football. Mike, we appreciate it, man. Thanks as always.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.